Good morning. Welcome back from the Gillespie Group Stadium District Storefront Studio. The Mid-Michigan Business Wrap is brought to you by Dart Development Group. Dart Development Group is making a difference in the community. Visit dartdevelopment.com to nominate a company that you think is making a difference. We are here in the coffee shop, the Great Lakes Chocolate and Coffee Company, with Craig Wieland, and you just stopped by to bring Michael Patrick a gift. Can you let us know what it was?
On my way in this morning, I heard about this fantastic diet that Michael Patrick McCarthy is on, and I thought, oh my goodness, there's no calories. Michael, there's no calories in cayenne pepper. I mean, you can eat it all day long. And, yeah, if you want to lose weight real fast, you can just cut one of your legs off. I mean, there's other ways of doing this. And I have a little sugar bush, and I said, I got to get Michael Patrick some maple syrup. So that's what I did.
Well, hopefully he'll stop this diet tomorrow. We're going to talk to some doctors on the morning program.
Some real doctors, not trainers.
Thank you very much. We can all use a little maple syrup, a little sweetness in our life. We're back with our Mid-Michigan Business Wrap, and we have a very special guest today. He is the first gentleman of the state of Michigan, leadership consultant, multiple-time author, radio host. He is Renaissance man, first gentleman Dan Mulhern. Thanks for being here.
Glad to be here, Skinny.
Thank you very much. I got a long way to go before you can call me that. But our panel here, as you know, are all small business people.
Right.
They all have to be leaders at home and at work. And your book, Be Real, is about that.
Right.
Can you just tell us a little about what it's about, and then I'll turn you over to them.
Right. Well, very quickly, on the one hand, I'm consulting, advising, being a friend to a governor who's got as big and complex a set of problems, I guess, as just about anybody could have, short of Barack Obama. But on the other hand, I got thrust into what was traditionally a female role to really be this support person in the family. And the more I looked at both, Michael, looked at the big picture of leadership and leading on a big stage, and then the microcosm of trying to motivate adolescent daughters or a lethargic son, it seemed like they were the same set of issues. And so this is a book not about theory and concept, although it's pretty well founded in some good research on leadership, but really about the real stories of leaders and the hard trade-offs that these people around this table as everyday small business people know, the hard trade-offs of how to build the business at the same time you're running the business, and be at work and be happy at work at the same time you're trying to balance at home. Those are the real stories of inspiring leadership.
Peggy Doty is here, Cheryl Freeborough, Bob Hedlund, Katrine Medawar, and also Jim Trebilcock and Scott Danick. Any questions for the first gentleman about Be Real or about anything else?
If I may.
Please.
I've been on your website, and I've looked at the website in some detail, and it looks like your life is really busy.
Yes.
What's a typical day like for you?
Well, a typical day for me is that my wife has been up and going for an hour and a half before I have. But these days I get my son to school, and I pick him up in the afternoon, which has been a great blessing to be able to do that. And then my time is pretty flexible. As a writer, a radio person, a consultant, a speaker, I can pretty much flex, which has been really great because my wife cannot flex and is pretty much working from the beginning of the day when she gets up till 10 o'clock when she conks out. But flexibility has been huge for me, and that's not just me in a big role and me as somebody with a big degree and a type A wife. Just about everybody's like that. We have an awful lot of single income families now, and then we have a lot of two income families, and people are scrambling all the time. And I think great businesses are aware of that and increasingly aware of that and trying to figure out, how do I make it work for my people so my people will work for me? And the great businesses build that tremendous synergy where they recognize this is not the days of Ozzie and Harriet anymore. And we'd all love to have the ideal worker who comes in at 6 and works till 10 and does emails after that. But the fact is most of us are in family situations, and that's our most treasured life. So I think it's one big lesson in this book, and I want to talk more about that, is businesses that really understand the real needs of families.
Katrine Medawar with a question for Dan Mulhern.
Well, Dan, you always say that you are in a support role. Shall I move my lemons? But you always say that about yourself. I appreciate that about you a lot. It takes a big guy to be able to be in that support role, and you do it very well.
Well, thank you,
My question
Katrine.
to you, do you have any personal aspirations that you on a very personal level have not achieved yet? And what would those be?
Well, an interesting level, yes, I do. I have a great book in me about the experience of being a man in a traditionally woman's role. And I think we have a lot to learn about that. I think Jennifer and I have a book in us about Michigan and what the country can learn for it, because all of us watching Barack Obama over the last 2 years have to feel like, haven't we seen this movie before? Isn't this exactly what we've gone through in Michigan? So I hope to write a little bit more, Katrine. But I'll tell you, I had a driving need to accomplish when I came into this position, this unusual role. But I leave having, with 2 daughters in college, and feeling like it's been a great accomplishment to learn to support my wife, get my big male ego out of the way, and have extraordinary relationships with my children that my father never had the opportunity for.
The book is called Be Real, Inspiring Stories for Leading at Home and at Work. We'll find out how you can meet Dan Mulhern and get the book, and more questions from our Mid-Michigan Business Wrap panel as soon as we get back in 4 minutes. It's Michael Patrick Shields. 6 minutes left in the segment, so we're going to move quickly with First Gentleman Dan Mulhern. The book is Be Real, Inspiring Stories for Leading at Home and at Work, and you're having a couple of meetups soon.
Yes, Thursday the 7th. We'll be at the Michigan Brewing Company in downtown Lansing on Washington, and then the following Thursday, the 14th, in Detroit at Bookie's Bar and Grill. And so just a time to come hang out, maybe buy a signed copy. Not too early to do Christmas shopping, right?
So people can have a beer with the First Gentleman?
Yeah,
That's pretty
absolutely,
cool.
Absolutely. We'll
All
have
right.
have a beer. Maybe you'll break your diet and have one on me.
If I break it, that's what it'll be for. Let's turn it over to the panel.
I had a quick question. And your book says home in it too. Your life's going to be changing in a few months.
Right.
And Jennifer's going to be home a whole lot more. So
Oh,
what is
God.
your plan? I don't know. How
Might
do
have
you
to get a
deal with
job.
that? Yeah, well, that's what I'm thinking. What's your plan to go forward, being together again? And I'm sure you still have your own options. And you talked about writing a
Right.
book. But I'm wondering, how are you going to deal with that new change in your life?
Right. Well, I honestly look forward to it so much, because she's given heart and soul to the job, and it's a consuming job, and it's been amazing to watch her do it. But it'll be great to have her back in a certain way. Although I can't see her not running things. She loves to execute, and I think very quickly she'll find her running something.
I had a quick question on when you're talking about all the previous books that you've written and upcoming ideas and everything. How in the world do you organize things in your head or notes? Do you go through and write, the ideas for a book? Do you write chapters and then build from that? How do you organize things on your thoughts?
Yeah, well, thanks so much. Great question, Bob. Bob Hedlund from Hedlund Plumbing. Take care of all your plumbing needs. Well, I think people are very, very different, and I am by nature not a very organized person, and so I've had to build systems for myself. And the system I've been working with lately that works so well for me is goals every 2 weeks. So I sit down and I write down exactly what I think I can get done in 2 weeks, and I keep that in front of me, literally in front of me. It hangs in front of me on a sheet of paper, and Jennifer and I actually go over it now since I'm not working at the state government anymore and don't have support. Jennifer's my support staff, so she kind of holds my feet to the fire, and I revise that every 2 weeks and keep that in front of me. So without that, I'd be dead. Yeah.
I have a quick question. This is Peggy Doty. Some business owners just seem to be natural leaders, and others struggle with that role. And what local resources are available to a small business owner who wants to become an everyday leader but needs some help in developing those skills?
Well, I think this is the age to live in, because there is so much stuff out there. And I would say begin with the book, The Leadership Challenge. It's a book. It's not a human resource, but it's written by a couple guys named Kouzes and Posner. It's in its 5th edition. It's totally research-based, and it's very practice-oriented. So it's not about, the idea that leaders are born, I think, is wrong. We can all develop talents. We all have gifts. I'm much better in a one-on-one, emotional, relational conversation than my wife. My wife is much better with big, complicated systems. So each of us have our strengths. But there are practices, and you live those practices. So you have to inspire people, But there's different ways to do that. You don't have to be John F. Kennedy. We know we have to challenge people, and there's different ways to do that, gently or really sternly. There's different ways to encourage people and to enable people. So if you focus on those 5 practices, I think that's the best way to do it. But online, there's just a plethora of things. I do a weekly email on leadership that's free to get. Comes out Monday mornings. I call it a stimulant for those who lead, so people could find that at danmulhern.com. It's called Reading for Leading. But there are just so many resources that I don't think anybody can say, I'm not a leader anymore, because it's something you can get better at, and there's so much out there in this day and age to do it.
Scott Danek, a minute and a half.
Dan, you mentioned earlier the problems that we have both in this state and nationally, and they can seem kind of overwhelming at times. I noticed in your book you have a brief snippet on public service. What advice would you give the average person that's listening that says, hey, I'm not going to become governor, I'm not going to run for Senate or the House, but how can I make a difference? Because it doesn't matter who's elected this November. That's not going to get everything solved. We need people to get involved. So what advice would you have for
Scott, I think that's incredibly right. And, I would say go find the Michigan Community Service Commission site in state government is probably a great way in. And there are a million ways to give. I personally think the best way is in schools, and that this century that we are in is about a knowledge economy, whether you're working at Headland Plumbing or Shirley's, Doty Mechanical Heating and Engineering. It's about being able to add more value, about learning how to relate to customers in a better way. It's all about knowledge. So I think, getting into schools and reading, becoming a mentor, doing something which will enrich and uplift, especially children who don't have that kind of support. Wonderful question, Scott.
Thank you for the time. I know you're very busy. You're hot-footing it to meetings and meet-ups, if you will, and Be Real, inspiring stories for leading at home and at work. Where can we get it?
danmulhern.com is the best way. People can find it at Amazon. It'll be at Schuler as well one of these days. We're working on that one. This is a very grassroots effort. But danmulhern.com, MULHERN.
And we
lots
can
of
hear
resources.
You 7 till 9 on Saturday mornings on this radio station, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks so much. What a joy being with a great panel of real leaders.
Thank you very much for that compliment to everyone. And the lady who put it all together, who founded this networking group, it's more than just a radio show, the Mid-Michigan Business Rap, Suzanne Heward says...
That's a wrap.